Good afternoon, and welcome to Watch Out for Trickster Foods. Today, we're going to focus on the fundamentals of label reading. By the end of today's webinar, we will know what a nutrition label is and why it's important, and also discuss tricky terminology on food labels. The nutrition facts label is helpful in identifying nutritious foods that align with the updated USDA meal pattern requirements. As you can see on the screen, there are two labels. The reason there are two is due to a recent change by the FDA to help consumers such as yourself make more informed decisions when choosing foods. The one to the right shows the new format that went into effect on July 26, 2018. If we look at the label on the right, we'll see that the number of servings per container and the serving size declaration have been increased and are now larger and bolder. Serving sizes have also been updated to reflect what people actually eat and drink today. For example, the serving size for ice cream was previously half a cup and is now 2/3 of a cup. Also, the calories is larger and bolder. And then calories from fat has been removed because research shows that the type of fat consumed is way more important than the amount of fat. Added sugars in grams and as percent daily value is now required on the field. Added sugars include sugars that are either added during the processing of foods or are packaged as such as a bag of table sugar, and also include sugars from syrups and honey and sugars from concentrated fruit or vegetable juices. The list of nutrients that are required or permitted on the label have also been updated. For instance, vitamin D and potassium are now required on the label because Americans do not always get the recommended amounts. And so, if you'd like more information, I have included this nifty handout from the USDA that will be helpful for you to see. Reading labels can be pretty tricky business. Consumers are more health conscious than ever, so food manufacturers use misleading tricks to convince us to buy their products. According to the Nielsen survey, nearly 59% of consumers have a hard time understanding nutrition labels. The key recommendations from USDA give more information on how to follow the 5 guidelines for individuals. We know that a healthy eating pattern includes vegetables, dark green, red, and orange, beans and peas, starchy and other, also fruits, mainly whole, grains, half and whole, fat free or low fat dairy, a variety of protein foods, and oils. The USDA updated the meal pattern requirements for children and adults last year to ensure we all have access to healthy, balanced meals throughout the day. The changes focused on adding more vegetables, fruits, and whole grain, and less added sugar and saturated fat. Whether you're a parent, a teacher, or child nutrition staff, children need someone to provide healthy, balanced meals throughout the day. It's important for you to know what to look for to make sure they get what they need. All adults in a child's life are in a unique position to influence eating habits in young children. Lifelong eating habits are started in preschool years. In other words, children who eat healthy foods become adults who eat healthy foods. We know this statement is very true, so our job is to take advantage of the time we have with them and do our best to influence their lives. We all play an important role in keeping children healthy and forming healthy lifestyle habits. Okay, so let's dive in. The most important thing to remember is just because a food says it's natural, organic, or no sugar added, does not mean it's a food in its healthiest form. Some foods claim to be healthy while serving up unnecessary sugar and saturated fats. So, when looking at labels, look for items such as whole grain as the first ingredient, or you should look for recipes that offer healthier substitutes. For example, maybe you could exchange sweet potatoes for white potatoes. Research shows that adding health claims to the front of the label affects people's choices. These claims lead the consumer to believe a product is healthier than the same product that doesn't list health claims. It's hard for consumers to choose healthy options without a thorough inspection of the ingredients list. Food manufacturers are in the business to get us to buy their products, so they use bright colors on the packages along with inviting photos of the products, and then they often make a nutritional or health claim on the label. If a product is reduced in fat or made with natural ingredients, it's got to be a healthful food, right? Although claims made on food labels are regulated, they can still be a little deceiving. Let's take a moment and talk about a few things to be on the lookout when reading labels. Also, it's a good rule of thumb that if it's got a bunch of big words you can't read, you probably don't need it. Let's take a look at these two examples of an ingredients list. This is what I mean when I say look for simple. In this case, less is more. On the top, we have a non-fat yogurt ingredients list. Notice that there are only two ingredients and both can be purchased at their local grocery store. It also gives you the active ingredient, acidophilus, which is also great for a stomach ache and can be purchased in the vitamin section of your grocery store. Next, let's take a look at the Twinkies ingredients list at the bottom. It starts off good with enriched bleached wheat flour. It's not whole grain, but at least it looks familiar. The rest is downhill from there with a few sprinkles of common simple ingredients such as whole eggs and salt. But the point is, I likely can't recreate this at home. Another good warning is that they deep fry Twinkies at the state fair. That's all bad. First, let's talk about trans fat free. Trans fats are bad for your health, so it's a pretty good idea to avoid them. Look for hydrogenated oils and shortening in the ingredients list. If you see those, 9 times out of 10, there's some kind of trans fat in your product. Next, let's talk about another tricky one, reduced or lowered fat, sugar, or sodium. When the label states the food is reduced in fat, sugar, or sodium, it means the product has at least 25% less of that ingredient than the company's regular version of the same product. You may say, well, what's the problem with that? Well, the problem is reduced products sometimes contain nearly as many calories as full fat versions, but you really won't know that without comparing the label. Next is light or light. For food to be considered light, it has to have 1/3 fewer calories, fat, or sodium of the regular version of that same product. Next, let's talk about the natural label. Foods that use this claim can't have any synthetic ingredients or additives in the food product. However, that doesn't mean the food is naturally healthy because it may still be high in fats, sodiums, sugars, and calories. A food labeled natural may contain preservatives or be injected with sodium, and a good example of this is raw chicken. Next, let's talk about organic foods. This claim makes it appear the food has more of the specific organic ingredient than it really does. To be labeled organic, only 70% of the ingredients need to be organic. The remaining 30% don't have to be organic at all. Fully organic foods will state that they're 100% organic. When shopping for healthy bread and crackers, look for the words whole grain or 100% whole wheat in the ingredients list. It's not enough if it just says multigrain or made with whole grain. Let's look at this Cheerios label. Whole grain oats and whole grain corn are the first two ingredients, so this would definitely make it from the shelf into my basket. Next, let's talk about no sugar added. Remember at the beginning we talked about added sugars being added to the label. Here's an example for you to see. If you're really concerned about calories and carbs, you may toss no sugar added products in your grocery cart. And sure, sugar gets a bad rap. That's because the average American consumes 335 calories worth each day. But what's the nutritional benefit of it? There isn't any. Limiting your sugar consumption does have a sweet side, though. You can avoid serious health consequences such as obesity, high blood pressure, and even high blood sugars. So it's good to remember that if the product has no fruit or milk products in its ingredients, all of the sugars in the food are from added sugars. The total sugar of food containing fruit or milk includes added and naturally occurring sugars. Sugar-free and no added sugar are not the same thing. But sugar-free doesn't mean a product has fewer calories than the regular version. It may have more. Sugar-free products have less than 0.5 grams of sugar per serving, but they still contain calories and carbs from other sources. So don't be fooled. Gluten is a protein found in grains like wheat or rye, and it can wreak havoc on the health of those with gluten intolerance. If you don't have a gluten intolerance, gluten-free foods provide no benefit. Products that claim to be made with real fruit may not contain very much at all, or none of the type pictured on the box. Companies have to list ingredients, but they don't have to disclose the percentage of the ingredients, such as fruits and whole grains. Pop-Tarts claims to be baked with real fruit, but they also have 200 calories per pastry. And come on, who only eats one? Now let's talk about 2% milk. This sounds great, but what most people don't realize is that whole milk only contains 3.25% fat. So 2% milk contains less fat than regular milk, but not that much. It isn't technically considered low fat. Only 1% milk and fat-free milk meet that standard. When you eat a whole piece of fruit, you get the benefits of not just its vitamins and minerals, but also of its natural fiber. But when you drink fruit juice, you're basically drinking fortified soda, including lots of added sugar. For example, an 8-ounce bottle of a popular 100% apple juice has 28 grams of sugar. That's the same as an 8-ounce can of a popular soda. Similarly, fruit that's been processed into jam and jelly often has high fructose corn syrup as a main ingredient. So we know that always starting with how the food is grown is best, but sometimes that's not always an option. So let's talk about how we can reduce the unhealthiness of a food. Fresh or frozen fruits and vegetables are naturally low in sodium, but watch out for those that have added sauces or seasonings. And also, if you buy canned veggies and beans, you can drain and rinse them to lower the sodium. So let me just stop right here and say I know it's hard to always make the healthiest choices. Healthy foods tend to be more expensive, they're not always convenient, and they may not even taste as good as the unhealthier options. And besides that, your child may not even try the foods, so you may feel that your efforts are wasted. So we've talked to folks just like you who have been charged with being caregivers all across the state who have expressed these same challenges. We sympathize with you and want to help equip you with the tools you need to pull off a successful mealtime every day, whether that's at home or at a center. We know that it may seem hard to find options that fall into the requirements for preparing a healthy meal because it seems like there are so many things that are restricted. But let's try to focus on what's still available and not so much on what's not. I get it. That's so much easier said than done. But meal planning takes time and patience, but it can be done. Okay, let's do a quick review. Remember, fresh is always best, and frozen with no additives is a close second. Create a plan and attack. It takes a little time and patience, but it can be done. Also, remember that if you can't read the ingredients, it's probably best to leave it on the shelf. And lastly, the manufacturers have to get us to buy their products, so don't fall for the tricky labels. Thank you for attending today's webinar. Please be sure to check out the attached handouts and also be on the lookout for the follow-up email with other resources and an evaluation for your PDR credit. See you next month.